Okay, good evening, everyone. We're now at the final of a very intense one-day competition. This competition is following a conflict between three parties, where we have a non-international armed conflict between a religious group, the Witchers, who have declared independence inside the country of Shirklandia. They have decided that the city of Finn is now a city-state, and they want to control it. On the other side, we have Shirklandia, which is not recognizing the independence of Finn as a city-state and is fighting the Witcher forces as rebel forces. And we have a third country, well, a second country, a third party, named Fisheria, which are using the distraction of the nation of Shirklandia in order to try and gain some of the land that Shirklandia currently occupies, because that land is very, very good land for agricultural, and the port area is very good for fishing. So we have an international armed conflict between Fisheria and between Shirklandia, and then we have a non-international armed conflict between Shirklandia and the Witchers, or Finn. This simulation is the final simulation, and we are in a war cabinet meeting in Shirklandia, where the participants, the finalists, are going to represent the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the National Security Agency. We have three finalists. We have Andre, we have Asil, and we have Yarden, who are going to join us in only a few minutes. And we have our judges, Tan Imran, hello, and we have Igor Wozensweig. Thank you for joining us, and we will begin momentarily.
What's that?
Yes.
Welcome and thank you for coming to this cabinet meeting under these urgent times. I think that we have some important decisions to make. But before, as traditionally known in Shakaria, we need to raise our glasses. Remember that this is a witch hunt. We will win this witch hunt. Okay. What we have before us are three targets. We need to have a clear understanding about any legal and operational implications that we need to take into consideration before we take any decision what to do with each and every one. We ask representatives from the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the National Security Agency to consult us on this matter. We have our important legal advisor here. And you need to make sure that we are aware of everything that we need to be aware of before we make a decision on these three targets. So what I'd like to know at the beginning is what topics do you think we should be aware of? And therefore, I would like to give you each 90 seconds to give us a brief introduction of the topics that you want to discuss and the bottom lines of what you're actually aiming to say. Therefore, we don't need to go into a whole introduction and analysis of classification of the situation. We know there is an armed conflict. We know it's ongoing armed conflict. We don't need to cover that basis. We need to know what you think about those targets and what questions we need to address as top priority and what are your bottom lines. Please maintain your main points at this point to 3 or 4 main points. Don't go beyond that. We will have time for a further discussion. Let's start with the Ministry of Defense, please.
Yeah, thank you. Main points here. We need to understand that there is a conflict, but it's important to understand the character of the conflict relating to each of these targets because it changes the rules that we have to oblige by and it changes the PR perspective of the actions. Regarding the target, Alex, it's the most problematic target. We see that there are a lot of civilians in the area and we advise on not attacking this target, but given it's still an IAC, but we advise not to attack it, but we think that there may be some room to do it, but we need Ministry of Justice to decide based on internal law. As to the target SAM, it's absolutely in international law. We don't have to apply the FAST protocol. It's because of the other side does not apply, but it's a custom, so we'll do. We think that it's okay, but we need to be also here careful with the weapons that we choose. Not to cause too much damage, which would be unproportional. I'll go into details after. And regarding target 12, it's obviously the easiest one. I think that we can attack it almost with no precautions, given it's an IAC, and even if it was an IAC, it would be okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, please.
Thank you. So I do agree with my fellow colleague, Mr. Foreign Defense. However, I think that we need to make sure to apply the principles of distinction, proportionality, necessity, and precaution. Sure. I will take us to the application of the United Nations Charter. We do have the right to self-defense according to Article 51, even though it says for use of force, but we do have the responsibility to protect according to other laws. And Article 42, we will need to take the authority of the Security Council if we want to give in precaution. Our responsibility is to defend ourselves and defend our civilians, and according to ILO, the International Law Commission, we have our action if they're wrongful, they are precluded, for the sake of self-defense. These are my main arguments, and
Isn't the exception of self-defense relevant to the initiation of hostilities rather than to their continuation, which we are in currently?
they are.
Self-defense at the end of the day is relevant to the initiation of the conflict, right? And once we enter the realm of the battlefield, and IHL becomes a dominant legal field. So why should we even think in that direction?
Because the United Nations is the charter that encompasses all those laws. The Geneva Conventions does apply to the principles of safety.
So to be extra cautious.
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, I get straight to the bottom line. So Alex is a dual use, unless it's empty from civilians, which are not. So it's according to the principle of distinctions. It's common law. It's also in AP1, but it's also in NIAC and as a common article. SAM is also dual use. It can be special protected as being an indispensable object according to Article 14AP2. And about the Claver is he is as a religion person special protected, but since he is a direct participant in hostilities, so he's a military target.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this point, we would like to hear more about target acts. Now, if I understand correctly, Ministry of Defense think we are not allowed or should not attack target Alex.
At least we are not ready to confirm this target alone. We at least need to go over the implication from the internal law, because we are talking technically the territory.
Are you utilizing the target as an object or as a target which is composed of individuals? What are we looking
It's a
at?
compound object if we are talking about specific law, but it also has civilians, and it is a civilian object because it's by its nature.
Yeah, but we have a key leadership which meets there, they make strategic decisions. It seems like
As
an
This is one, this is the headquarters. You're saying this is the nature is civilian, but why do you use the nature is civilian?
Actually, it has a military, a distinct military nature. If we are talking this way, but it also has civilian nature. Of course, we are reluctant to use this target and to target this object. But if you want to proceed, we advise you first of all to take precautions to choose the means that you want to use. If we can, we should send a SEAL team or something. That's, or at least use very targeted bombing. But
why should you risk our soldiers?
it's a problematic question, but from the other state.
But again,
From the
let's return to my first question. Are we attacking the people inside the infrastructure, or are we attacking the infrastructure? Are we attacking the building or the people inside it?
What is the military object?
in this case, the object is indeed military, but there's enough collateral damage that will be caused from the attack, which we think is not proportional, going with the way that you want to get before. But we really are reluctant because
But
they know.
proportionality is measured by what we know beforehand. It is measured ex ante. So what do we know? What do we know?
Right
from
now,
the
we know
facts?
that
Do we have numbers of people? What part of the fact is relevant? The evaluation of proportionality, and if maybe you can guide us.
we don't have the numbers of people, at least I didn't get them, which is problematic. We do know that the lower residential area near the target with spouses and children of the leadership, but they are not a legitimate target, they are not taking direct participation in hostility. Which is relevant even in both in IAC and in ICE.
Key leadership are not DPH?
I'm talking about their families right now.
Okay.
The leadership itself is obviously takes direct participation.
Why obviously, what's the definition of DPH?
DPH are those who took up arms in the combat. There are different analysis of the DPH. The one from the ICS.
Can you differentiate between DPH and Levan Hamas? Taking up arms,
yes,
so
but
meaning
we-
that I'm
But we're not exactly talking.
spontaneously responding to a threat on my life.
We're not exactly talking about within mass because it's a policy of mass taking a lot of citizens into the army. It could be thought we can address it about the early information of the citizens being trained to fight, but not here. They're not having a mass. They are already combatants, and they had choice to join or not to join. So here the main question is, do they stop taking direct participation, and how we should address that? And in our opinion, we should go with the position of Israel and US and with the case on targeted killings.
If you want to reach the ICJ, I guess.
You may say so.
Well, I want to hear from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, since there are some external considerations that might be relevant here. Do you have a different analysis to the Alex?
I think we do need to be very cautious about how we hit on some points that my colleague here said about Alex. It is a nursing home, so it's a medical care center. There's human rights involved, and we don't want to breach that since then.
Yeah, but a nursing home does not have a protection like a medical clinic or a hospital, so why should we be that preoccupied?
Because there are civilians there, and we should be occupied with how the outside world is going to look at us. And from a perspective, we don't need hostilities from other nations towards us.
You said in the beginning that we need to take into consideration the basic principles: distinction, necessity, proportionality, and impact. Right? This is what you said. Distinction is relevant here because, well, this is, as the Ministry of Defense said, this is a military object. Do you agree that this is a military object?
I agree that we're dealing with direct participation of facilities, civilians.
The military headquarters. The military headquarters of PIN sounds to me like a military object. Do you think it's not?
No, I do think it is a military object.
Okay, so we don't have a problem of distinction. This is a military object, we're attacking a military object.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on. We agree that there is a necessity to attack the military headquarters as.
Depends, because here we also have that it is a residential area. It does house the families of.
But that would be under proportionality and precautions. Not necessarily on the decision whether or not we are allowed to attack it, the question of how we're allowed to.
Oh, yeah, we have to be careful with the collateral damage that we cause.
But that's not relevant to neither distinction nor necessity. This is relevant to question of proportionality and relevant precautions to be taken, right?
It is a legitimate target and they do contribute to the conflict. Yeah, this object does.
So we agree that this is a legitimate target that we're allowed to attack. And then the question only is about how should we attack it.
With precaution.
So the main point that you're making, I think that came a little bit from you as well, is to be more cautious about the how and whether or not we're allowed to or not. And that brings me,
The precaution is a question if you're attacking the object, the infrastructure or the people. So if we want to attack the key strategic leaders, we don't want to alert them for the attack. So how should we differentiate the analysis when it comes to the nursing home itself and the people who reside in it? And what does it mean actually, precaution and proportionality? Can you translate it into action items? What should we look at? How should we guide the Air Force to follow through?
So my opinion is that Sharklandia has enough precise military weapons. That we can use drones, for
Yeah.
example, so taking all alternative measures in order to.
So precision guided munitions, but they cost a lot of money, so why should we consider them? They're very expensive, right?
Because women and children are protected persons under the law, and.
Yeah, but the Witchers,
We are talking about no international conflict. What clause says that they are protected under any of international humanitarian law applicable to non-international conflict?
Where I stopped.
Because you use the key term here, protected persons.
This is the.
and what about the responsibility of the Witchers? They place their family within a military complex.
And don't forget the old people are already dying anyway.
That's also true. So it's economically efficient.
We're not looking at human rights, because I am looking at human rights here.
Why human rights? Shouldn't we look at IHL? You began with US ad bellum, you began with the laws of war, and now you're moving us to IHL. You have something against IHL?
I'm thinking about conflict resolution rather than escalation of war.
Conflict resolution.
Keep in mind that you are legal advisors. We are the government and its representatives. So we need to receive a legal advice on the legality of the targets and not necessarily about alternative measures that may or may not be applicable, but it is a chain of command question.
So that's where I will take you to, the minimizing of unnecessary suffering. I know it is costly, war is costly, but we need to look at the advance warning. We can't advance warn because we are unable to. However, what are the feasible precautions that we have? We must work to remove civilians because of the effect of the attack. That's Article 58 of the API, actually, 1.
57, you mean?
57, no. 58.
Okay, can you read the article?
Yes. Precaution against the effects of attacks. The parties to the conflict shall, to the maximum extent feasible, with prejudice to Article 49 of the 14th Geneva Convention, endeavor to remove the civilian population.
Let's read the paragraph B.
Avoid locating military objectives within or near densely populated areas.
This seems relevant to their decision to turn the nursing home to both a military headquarters and a residential building, right? So maybe they are violating this
They're definitely.
This rule? and maybe it exempts us from considering it? Can we entertain such an option
It
legally?
would be a good look on it.
You're right, we can. However, if you're taking this measure, we need to look at what are the implications from the ICC, because it would count as a war crime. And according to.
If it is legal under international humanitarian law, why would that be illegal under international criminal law?
Because of that, according to customary international humanitarian law, Rule 156, the targeting of civilians or infrastructure or harmed environment is prohibited. And I will maintain my point.
Maybe it is prohibited and maybe it even raises to the level of a great breach, but the ICC statute is a different instrument. We need to look at it if we want to invoke it or discuss it.
Come again?
The ICC
Yeah.
defines war crimes in a certain way. At times there is certain parallelities with great breaches under the Geneva Conventions, but at times not. So if we want to discuss ICC and crimes under ICC, we need to look at the ICC statute.
Of course.
And we're not looking at it currently. We need to understand how we can attack acts. We also need to
We're
look
not
about
talking
seven
about
club.
criminal responsibility right now, we're talking about operational fights.
Yeah, okay.
So I wanna move forward to and say. In your preliminary comments, you said that Alex is a dual use object. Could you define me a dual use object under the Geneva Conventions? What legally constitutes a dual use object?
Well, it's the exact article. I need to check it, okay, I'll get back to you.
In your own words.
Okay, because you have, okay, so dual use dual use is an object that serves also civilians and also military use.
What's a military object?
It's not military object, it's civilians, it's civilians objects, but it's also used for
But by the definition under the additional protocol 1 to a military object,
yes.
does it fit the criteria or not? Because.
No, it's not with the criteria
So
because
if
it's not passed.
So if it's a civilian object, we're not allowed to attack it at all.
Okay, so there is the test of nature, location, purpose, and use. Okay, so if
Of a military objective.
of
object?
no of civilians.
What's the source for that?
The source, well, again, I need to get back to you about the specific source.
And what does it mean practically? If it is indeed a dual use object, what does it mean in practical terms? We need to understand now if we bomb, how we bomb, and when we bomb.
Okay.
What does it mean?
So first you have to check that since there is civilians in this object, so the principles of distinctions is obvious works here and
Or maybe they are human shields. Maybe the witcher try to immune themselves with their
Yes.
families.
Yes, but it still serves as a nursing home. Nursing home, they maybe use them, and yet we have to act.
Military is operating in hospitals, military operates in areas which are civilian and when they are used for military purposes. So
Yes.
we do have a leeway, but what is that leeway?
Okay, so.
How narrow is the street that we need to go?
Well, okay, so it's depends on the excessive if the civilians damage is excessive to the relative military advance. So since we are
So
talking.
let's say we have 5 key leadership figures, what does it mean? What are we willing to tolerate in order to strike 5 key leadership figures?
Something that the chief,
The military commander.
the military commander should decide at the field, okay? So we don't have we don't have specific measure how much, it's something that he should take.
Let's clarify. This is the cabinet. The cabinet is in charge of the military and has full authority to make that calculation. So we need to make that analysis whether or not it is proportionate, legitimate attack. And we are asking for your advice to understand what calculations and what considerations we need to take into account when we make that decision. So we want to attack, I think there is a cross-border agreement here, which is unique, that this is a military object. And we're allowed to attack it because under Article 52(2), additional protocol 1, which defines a military object, nature, location, purpose, or use, which you have mentioned. classified that the military headquarters as a military object. So we are allowed to attack it, we just need to make sure that we do it, we take the relevant precautions, as was mentioned, and we are taking into account proportionality, etc., to make sure that the damage is not excessive. To what? Sorry, excessive, can you remind me?
To the military advance?
The military advance from that. Now, the military advantage, and I want to follow up on legal advisor's question earlier, I don't remember to which one was it. When we take into account the military advantage from that operation, do we care only about the militant headquarters, or do we also take into account the actual militants in the headquarters? I will go to your direction despite the discussion we've had that the people in the nursery or the family members, etc., are considered collateral damage. Okay? They are considered collateral damage. But the militants in the facility, in this headquarters, do we consider them part of the military advantage? Or we consider only the headquarters? If we attack the headquarters, do we take into account the militants in the headquarters as part of the military advantage?
So, okay, so if they are direct, if you can prove that they are direct participant in the hostilities, and they
Need to know about each and every one of them?
no, because they can also they can also be a shelter from willing to be
So human shields.
yes, human shelter.
So human shields are also considered taking part participation in security.
Well, there is it's depends if you are in the Schmidt side or the I side.
I am on Shirkania side.
Yeah, okay, so it's better to go to the safe side and not to.
And who is Schmidt and why should we side with him?
Well, it's also this is also
Should we invite him instead?
okay, well,
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I would like to contribute to this conversation, say that we do have the things here, we have direct participation in hostilities. Those are military and capabilities. If it was target closer, the highway, then it is very specific that it is he
You want to move to Clover?
the threshold.
Yeah, let's talk. So let's talk about Clover.
So Clover meets the threshold. He the threshold of harm. He caused loss of life because of his hands, injury and damage. He caused injury, damage to our military equipment. Does he have direct casual link to all hostilities? Yes, he's the commander. He's the one that told him there's a curse is happening on the witches, and that's.
Isn't he also a spiritual leader or a religious leader as such entitled to protection? What gives? How should we measure?
So Obama once said that a king makes decisions, a prophet can't. So yes, maybe he does make the decisions, but the decisions that he makes do not immune him completely, because we can think about the things that he's
By the
saying.
way, do we know where the vacation home is? Because it does not stipulate in which state it is found. So maybe here, questions of use and bello might become relevant, right? And it seems like a topic you'd like to discuss. So if, for example, the vacation home is located in the Netherlands,
Or no,
It's another state, so when it's another state.
can we attack there?
We have to take the consent. We have to ask the other state whether they agree, and that's according to the United Nations General
Well,
Assembly.
if he has a vacation home in the Netherlands, I guess they side with him.
I mean, depends. we need to check that, and in order to check it, we investigate, and
And
sometimes.
if we will check it, he might be alerted that we are aiming and targeting him, and then we will ruin this price factor.
So in another case, there was a military necessity, it was Anwar al-Awwaq, who was killed in Yemen. He was a US citizen and US killed him right on another party's land. That can give us a hint on how we can actually do it.
But
not-
the US raised the claim of unwilling or unable when targeting in those areas during that time, correct? And also, al-Awwaqi being a national of the US means that it is a constitutional issue rather than an IHL issue, right?
It's a domestic issue for sure. It's still.
Okay, so let's focus on the first aspect. I think that the US claimed that when it attacked Pakistan and the other areas during that time, that those states are unwilling and unable to help the US to deal with terror threat that Al-Qaeda and al-Awwaqi posed. Right? So can we raise such a claim in this case?
There was an agreement of some sort, it's like, we're unable, unwilling, that is our agreement.
That is the agreement.
Yes, we are unable and unwilling to meddle in this, if you want to do it, then do it. So we need to take measures that some people in the high government of other states are informed of our decisions, because that's what the the Charter of the United Nations actually asks of us. So if we're gonna behave not as to the charter, then we need to deal with the consequences, and I think.
Yeah, but the charter also recognizes our sovereignty, our rights, our
This
self-determination.
France wants to wage it.
Yeah, but I actually wanted to talk also about the DPH issue, but if you.
Isn't Clover a DPH issue?
I just wanted to reiterate some things and to reinforce the opinion of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If you had any doubt, because you talked about him being a religious leader, but he has a dual role, but the relevant question is, that the relevant standard is like, as I said, is in the targeted killing opinion, which is very relied upon opinion in the international law in this case.
Wasn't it a domestic court ruling? Does it have any weight in international law? A domestic court ruling?
Yes, from the opinion of the scholars, it indeed has, but talking strictly from the standpoint of the sources of the law, it has no direct effect. But it also affects the state practice. So,
And is the ruling in line with the view of the ICRC?
no, no way. ICRC has opinion that ICRC thinks.
So time is short, can you just state the difference between the opinion of the targeted killing?
ICRC thinks that the revolving door is an okay issue, while the targeted killing the opinion thinks that it's not okay and it's not a feature, it's a bug that we need to avoid.
Could you explain to me what's the okay issue? In the ICRC, you said they think that's a.
If I remember right, it interpretive guiding by Niels Melzer from 2009. It's supposed, I'm not sure, but it's also interpretive guiding. It's not source of law itself.
But what does it say about revolving door?
About revolving door, it says that it's a feature of the law, because it needs to defend the civilians, and it's as being a paramount part of the.
But did they also say something about continuous combat function?
Yes, but in this
Which
case,
resolves the issue of revolving door.
our manual may be outdated.
It stems from the same publication.
Did I read it? It was different.
Okay.
Maybe a different language.
I think
It's basically in your church.
yeah. This case, I'm not sure that I remember the difference, but
So what's the bottom line of Clover? Can we attack the Netherlands?
If it's in another land, the issues of the use are relevant, but actually we're going with unable and unwilling. We just need to assess the PRs.
What does it mean?
I want to go back to something. You said that revolving door and all that means that if you take the targeted killing case approach, then we are allowed to attack him, but if we take the ICRC approach, we are not allowed to attack.
It's more problematic, I think, when we are trying to go with the interpretation that, sorry for the language, but covers this. And in this case, there may be a lot of, given that he's a national of our country still, and given the nature of him being the religious leader, we want to be good to go
You
with.
know, you raise an interesting point, I want to hear the NSA point of that, because I think the NSA is the one to address that, and it actually follows what two of your colleagues have said. He is our national, and there are questions of, brings in questions of right to life and other human rights that might be involved. Taking that into account, are we allowed to target Clover? Are we allowed to attack Clover, yes or not? Because taking both of these considerations into account, I'm starting to think that despite the fact that most of you said that we're allowed to attack him, at least at the beginning, although now I'm not so sure, I need to understand at this point what should be done. I think the NSA is the perfect organization to address that question.
Okay, so yes, we are allowed to target him since he is participants, direct participants at the military. And he is the chief and he is the head of all of the military and the operation. And so there is the threshold arm that is passed, and there is the direct caution, okay, between the arm and the results, and in such time, it's specific. At this time, he's also is doing this. He's also a participant
So are we allowed to attack him?
Yes.
Let's assume that we have the alternative of not killing. We have the option of capturing instead of killing.
Okay.
Are we required to capture him instead of killing him if we can? Why? He's a legitimate military target.
No, it's use slogan. You cannot if you have the chance to if he's surrender or
I think we will lose 5 soldiers. Is there an obligation under IHL to lose 5 soldiers that will die while trying to capture him instead of simply bombing the?
Okay, so this is the proportionality.
To me, it's a force protection issue. Aren't we allowed to protect our forces? Don't we have a right to think about the lives of our soldiers?
Yes, it's not, there is no specific article about this, but it should be taken into consideration about the proportionality when.
Okay, not 5 soldiers, 1 soldier.
Our soldiers,
What-
yes,
Are we required to risk even one of our soldiers in order to capture him? Or if it means that if we cannot do it without risking the lives of our forces, we're allowed to kill him regardless. Even if we have the option to capture him while risking our forces.
if we have the option to capture him while risking our soldiers.
Yeah.
So this is a good question. It's
Why he's the prime minister.
yeah. Well, it's if you can find or wait for another time that you can capture him
He will give
in.
more orders for other regions.
Well, so this is exactly since this person is very dangerous person and he's.
But he's also a religious leader. He's also a source of comfort for his people. He also has symbolic value. He's also important to their culture, to their tradition.
And
So
yet,
those things mean something, right?
yes, and yet, by the law, if he is taken the.
So why is there protection for the religious leaders under IHL?
If they are not protected directly in the hostilities, if they are direct protects. They are
Maybe-
participant with that, so they are not that, this is the law,
Mhm.
the IHL.
Okay.
Okay, let's move to.
But I do, with your permission, I would like to get back to you with the question that you. About you asked about
The legal source of dual use.
LBS AP2 Article 13.3, civilians enjoy protection unless they take a direct part of hostilities.
That's civilians, that's not objects.
Civilians, נכון? Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Okay, okay, about the objects, it's Article 52. 52.2 and 3, it's
52 is the definition of a military.
of military objects.
I don't see dual use period there.
No, but they,
Without opening the one, the most dual use not here. Also in
Yes,
in Article 53, the most dual use don't appear. Neither here nor here. Most dual use you won't find.
yeah,
So there is no legal source for dual use, and therefore an object is either military or civilian. And we need to understand.
so, well, you said that three of us is thinking that this is a military object, so I think it's not a military object. Since the nature is not military, it is civilians in the nature.
Of a
The
military.
And we're talking about
We're talking about-
Alex, yes?
Back to Alex, yeah.
We're back to Alex.
So a military headquarters, nature is civilian.
We're talking about the
The
nursing home.
which
yes.
is being used. The words being used as a militant headquarters, nature, location, purpose of use, right? These are the four terms, the four objects.
Mhm.
And you actually being said explicitly, it is being used as a militant headquarters. And where key leadership figures convene to make strategic decisions. So if we go under Article 52, we actually conclude that this is a military object because it's being used for military purposes. So I think
Okay,
you do agree that this is a military
yes,
object
yes,
under
thank
that
you.
definition.
Yes.
So let's move on to Project SAM. The port in Fisheria, we can and able to attack it. There are certain vessels going on there transporting weapons, etc. Sometimes under the disguise of commercial ships, sometimes not. And we need to know if we are allowed to attack that. I think we never start with the NSA on any of the files, so you are willing, please, let's hear your thoughts on
Okay.
SAM.
So, SAM is also a dual use. It's the main port of it's the main.
Fisheria.
Yes, Fisheria. Well, it has 50 million tons of cargo capacity.
But again, what does it, so it's dual use, okay,
Yes.
so can we attack it or cannot? Or can't we? Is it possible or impossible? Under the law?
Legal or not?
So it's not possible. It's indispensable.
But it's dual use.
Yes,
It-
but it's indispensable objects, and according to article.
What is the definition of
Oh,
a
sorry, Article which article?
1482.
Article 14.
Yeah, but I
It's a
think that
special
indispensable is usually referred to electricity, to water.
It's also.
A port to me seems like a privilege. There's
Yes, but
something
it's
which is
fast,
indispensable.
it has a lot of cargo that use civilians, and if you.
So they can use helicopters, they can use roads, they can use other means. Or maybe after the war is over, we can help them establish a new port that will not be misused.
As
Or maybe the US will want to put a floating port. for a while there, right?
So if there are other alternative, so you're right, it's a.
So we want to attack it, because this is their supply line at the end of the day, and unless we're dealing with their supply line, then the war will continue forever. So how can we attack a dual use object? When, how?
So of course you have to give a protection, to have the precaution, you have to let them know
Are
that.
we attacking the port or the ships? What will we attack? Should we attack the infrastructure of the port, or should we attack the ships which are delivering the vast jackets?
So it's also it depends. You can attack the ships that are using military use objects, and
Yeah, so the ships are not even dual use actually.
yes,
They're military ships.
Okay, Mr. Foreign Affairs, please,
Thank you.
especially it is foreign, port,
And it's an affair.
yeah.
It's true, it is in their international waters, and we are
It's actually an fishery as well.
in their, yes, it is in their fishery water. And attacking it will cause collateral damage for sure, because it already has munitions, military supplies, and whatnot, guns and rockets. We need to
Yeah,
take
But it's a military target. Why should we care about the damage that is being done by their decision to concentrate weapons or ammunition within a ship?
because we don't know who goes to that port in and out, so we need to follow the distinction. Well, how many civilians do go there statistically?
Okay, you go back to the principle of distinction. If we agree that the vessels are military object, right? The vessels transporting ammunition, vast guns, rockets, and other equipment are military objects. And there is a question, if the port is a military object because it's being used again for military purposes of transporting weapons, then distinction is no longer the question if we attack military objects.
But they're disguised as commercial ships, so we need to make sure that that disguise.
But again, they are misusing the law. It's the same
Of course
concept.
they are in violation. I'm not saying they're not in violation, I'm saying that we need to be not in violation.
But then you agree that if they are in violation, we are exempt.
And
Should we take over the ship rather than bomb it from the air?
that's what I'm getting at, so I want to get at, is like if we need to minimize unnecessary damage, we need to understand that the ports there.
There are not a lot of precedents that can help us in such a situation, right? But one helpful case is maybe the flotilla case, the flotilla to Gaza, and specifically the MV Marmara, and Israel's decision to take over the ship. And its decision to take over the ship rather than to bomb it or use other means cost it lives and health of soldiers and also people inside the ship. So what can we learn from that precedent, or maybe we should look at other examples?
Speak right now in the cabinet, and I will reiterate that we need to stop imminent damage from occurring to us. So if it is a target of attack, it is a target of attack. However, if it causes damage to the environment, let's say, specifically if we're talking about other nations, people, those nations are gonna look at us in a hostile manner. We need to make sure that the violations that we're exempt from, that people don't know about, that we're exempt from because they possibly don't know exactly how the other side is in violation, might impact Sharklandia's global standing.
You can always trust the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to take into account the considerations of other nations overall.
That's the way you are leading me to accountability and transparency. That's how we need to communicate and inform and be honest about, okay, we decide to mitigate this the situation by bombing the port. It's either that or we tell them that evacuate from all civilian lives, because then we can capture, but that will cost us lives. So I'm also leading to this question because Prime Minister and
Legal advice.
legal advisor, Prime Minister, with all due respect, but Prime Minister might be accused of war crimes if more civilians, more casualties might be.
Yeah, but then he was for election.
I might be accused of war crimes if I'm relying my actions on insufficient legal advice. I think that what I'm actually doing here is trying to consult 3 and actually 4 legal advisors in order to understand what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. I have to say that so far, after hearing Ministry of Foreign Affairs and NSA about the port, I'm quite confused about what we're allowed to do or not allowed to do.
We
So
are in troubled waters, it seems. They will be difficult.
so I want to hear from the Ministry of Defense to see if
Yeah.
some clarification would be provided.
Just to clear things out.
That's what I'm asking you to do.
I'm making a figure of speech. Okay. The issue of the dual use object, as was debated before.
Again, dual use object.
In this
What
case,
is a dual use object legally?
normally object of civilian nature, which is used for the military forces.
Which answers the definition of a military object under Article 52. So a civilian object that actually answers the definition of a military object.
In most cases, the military use is not the dominant use, so we can, and not always we can.
How do we know that from the facts? We don't have numbers of ships, we don't have any idea about
Yes,
other
but,
goods which are being transferred and
The
they're.
point that I wanted to make wasn't that it is indeed a dual use object. I wanted to make point that even if it is, we have a specific issue before us, which we need to discuss in this case.
Which
Proportionality mostly and precautions, because if we're going to well respected opinions such as Wittgenstein's one, if we are talking about
is it a brand of Schmidtke?
no, actually the head of our legal department is a big fan of this, so that's why I can't with his
Of
opinion.
Wittgenstein.
Yeah.
How come?
Maybe this.
Who is it?
The one go. I think it was Bira or something like that. I talked to him like 2 weeks ago, so I don't really remember.
I have a dead grandmother, right? But I
No.
can be later.
If you want, I can make a clear joke about Zimbabwe, but okay,
It's okay.
not Zimbabwe, sorry. And I can make a clearer joke about Shalan Shanipura, but I won't. So if I go in with the opinion of Wittgenstein, it's the main question before us. He's as authoritative as other scholars, but he's one of the most respected ones, at least in the opinion of our own ministry. So going forward, the dual use here requires us not to proceed if it will be unproportionate. Getting specifically into proportionality, it's important to us to decide what is specifically the object. The shipment of the arms, the disguised military vessels entering, leaving, or inside the port itself, or the whole port. Our ministry goes with the notion that it's better not to designate the whole facility as a target, because it will be clearly unproportionate to attack it. Because
Why?
Yes, as we know, we don't know a lot, but from the things that we know,
We don't know a lot, but we know that attacking the port as a whole would be disproportionate.
I was just making a point that given the amount of food and other cargo that passes through the spot, which is
Because it says that it is the main port,
Yes.
which means that there are other ports. So maybe we can destroy it
it's the main.
completely.
No,
So they can
we're-
make another port, the main one,
uh,
and learn a lesson on the way.
Which
Um,
brings us back to Article 14 of
Yes.
issue Protocol 2, which talks about basically starvation of the civilian population. And therefore, if there are alternatives, they won't starve. So it's not indispensable in the sense that there are alternative routes to bring food and other goods through. So let's go back to.
yes, I wanted to get to the point of famine as an legitimate mean of method of warfare. So it's indeed the opinion of our ministry based on the exact article that you mentioned, 14.
Right,
Yes.
was your calling for an essay?
I think I was not attentive enough. I'll try to be better next time. So in this case, we think that attacking the whole compound will bring the capacity of the cargo pass down too much to make to let the civilians in the country of the area live sustainably on the food that they have, given also the fact that it's a very northern country, which has only 2 other land borders and has no other way to supply food other than the ports. We don't know, I personally don't know how much other ports there are, but the opinion that I heard in the ministry was that it's crucial to their survival.
So we're making base decision on assumptions, on information that we don't know, but as was mentioned by my legal advisor earlier, according to proportionality, we operate according to the information that we have, not the information that we don't have.
Yes, you're right. And here I think that we should take a deep look inside and think that we should have taken better precautions getting the intel in this case, but we have what we have. Also taking into as our responsibility under the protocol, Article 57.
Okay, we're getting towards, we have 3 minutes to the end of that of this meeting. I'm still not
Then we
sure
go
Yes, I would like
about
to
anything.
help you.
So I want 1 minute answer for each and every one of you, giving me bottom lines as a conclusion from this discussion. What do you think should be done about Alex, about Sam, about Clover, and one additional consideration that you think we should take into account if that exists at all? You would like to start? Please.
Yes, I would like to start with the Sam. So since you are confused about what to do, if to target or not, so it is like our friends here said, it is military targets, and yet before you do this, you have to do everything you can to make sure it's the attack is proportionality to the military advance and to take a precaution, and if there is any other way to avoid the attack and still prevent prevent.
I get the point,
Okay,
that's
yes.
fine. What
So-
about Alex, yes or no?
Okay.
We have 10 seconds. Alex, yes or no?
Yes, Alex is the.
Alex is the nursery home, which is also serves as a military headquarters.
Alex is also,
Quick answer, yes.
yes, it
Allowed to
is
attack
allowed to attack again.
under the same.
Understand.
Okay, and Clover?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, please.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I think the targets Alex and Sam should be considered equally as causing a big collateral damage that we need to take into consideration and follow the minimum amount of hostility. We also, I would conclude that we need to take for Clover the agreement of the other host country or the other
If it is.
yes, and that is for, of course, diplomatic reasons, the agreement, and the Security Council also should be informed about it in the UN Charter.
Maybe you will also inform the High Witcher that we are going to
No,
attack
of
you.
course not, but I want to make your, I want to open your eyes that the High Witcher is influential character, so these people are our own nationalities. And if we do kill the High Witcher, in this case, when we don't take other measures to actually attack him or maybe capture him or maybe receive other precautions, create other precautions according to the law that I gave you earlier, Article 7 or Article 58. Even I did not mention ICRC rules 16 to 27, which are customary international law, and precaution and proportionality.
Okay. Minister of Defense,
Yeah, thank you. Going from the target Alex, we think that it's unwise to attack it. We don't sign under this decision. We want to look into our children's eyes without blame.
Sam,
Yeah, because of the reasons talked about proportionality and precautions. Yeah, in the case of the target Sam, we agree to the attack, we have no problem with that, but to the attack which is more limited, of specifically of the shipment with the preferably with weapon that won't cause chain explosions, and talking about military vessels, we need to take necessary precautions to distinct between military vessels and others. Talking about the object Clover, we have the least amount of objections here. We only talking about it as an IAC. If he's inside the field, it's okay. Generally, he's a military figure. He takes direct participation in hostilities, and it's of course proportional and cautious enough to attack him because he's alone. Thank you.
okay, thank you very much for your advice. I think that at the end of the day, you can say there is unwilling, unable, and unwise. So, thank you very much for your advice, and now we're gonna go to the other room and decide whether or not to attack or not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.